I have got quite the selection of vintage doilies. I absolutely love them. Every time I'm at the thrift store, I'm collecting them. So if you are like me and have quite the collection, then you'll definitely want to watch, as I've got several ideas on how you can incorporate doilies into some craft projects. Let's get started. I've had this faux brass photo frame holder from Dollar Tree in my stash for a couple of years now. I'm not sure if they still have them or not, but you could get just a basic frame like this. Like you can get some basic brass hoops like this, and you could just create something similar to this using one of those. I've got a doily in my stash that fits perfectly. It's like the perfect dimension for this particular photo frame. And what I'm going to do is actually stitch this onto the hoop. So I'm just using some crochet thread that matches with the color of my doily. And I'm winding it, like working from the back side, going through a hole and then winding it around the brass hoop and tying the knots on the back side. Now, if you prefer, you could definitely try gluing this on, but I like to show some projects where you don't have to use glue once in a while. So you can see there's the stitch there, and that's what you're going to see all the way around on the hoop. So I need to flip back over here, and I didn't want to cut my thread. I am going to do kind of like a long stitch. I'm making a loop and I'm going to put my needle through that loop, and then I'm going to pull it tight, and that will tighten the thread around the hoop. So here's another look. I'm going through the crochet doily, around the wire frame, through another hole of the crochet doily, creating a loop and putting my needle through that loop. And then I'm going to be pulling tight. If you prefer, you could definitely just individually tie the string on and just tie it off with a knot each time you go around. But I was just trying to save myself some time doing that because it would take a little bit longer doing it that way. You'll just have to watch to make sure you get your loop tied off tightly around around the brass hoop. So I'm just going to go ahead and just finish off here. And when I get to the end, I am going to stitch through the doily so I can tie a knot. All right, so you could add a little bit of glue on those knots to help prevent them from coming apart. I didn't bother. Now it's time to decorate our photo frame. So of course you can put anything you like in the photo frame. It's just like a thin piece of acetate here. I'm just removing the contents and any of the stickers here. And I've got a selection of some scrapbook paper. I really like this one that says Faith with the pretty little flowers. I'm just trying to decide the background for it. It was part of a cut apart page, and it wasn't quite big enough to fit inside the photo frame. So I decided to just cut another piece of scrapbook paper, and that would just kind of balance it out on the top and the bottom here. I'm just going to push it into place gently. You could tape it together if you'd like, but I didn't bother to do that so I can take this apart if I choose. So now all you have to do is put it back into place, and then it's ready to be hung on the wall. I think it looks so pretty. It would even be really nice to change it out according to its seasons. Okay, so now we're going to be doing an old craft, and I'm going to be using some fabric stiffener and a container that's big enough to hold the doily here. And my fabric stiffener, I've decided that I'm going to be adding a bit of water to it. I just find that it gets soaked into the doily a whole lot better when I do that. So I'm going to go ahead and just mix up a solution of my the fabric stiffener along with some water, and I'm going to mix that well. There's a few different brands out there, so I would just search in your craft store to see what's there. I just found this one in my stash, so that's what I chose to use. So I'm going to be using a craft stick here just to mush it around. You can wear a glove and just get right in there. You could use your bare hand if you like. My glue isn't toxic, so that's always a bonus. But I decided that I'm just going to use a craft stick for now. I'm making some more solution as needed until my doily is fully saturated. As mentioned, this is an older craft, but I've got a little bit of a twist for you, and I think it turned out really well. So I'm at the point where I need to squeeze out the excess liquid. So I decided to put a glove on, and as I was working with this glove, I didn't realize it, but there was a hole in it and my finger ripped through the hole. So just be aware of that. Make sure you don't have any holes in your gloves. You can see my finger just broke through there. But thankfully I had other gloves on hand. Okay, so I have got my doily all ready to go, and I picked up this wire mesh basket from Dollar Tree. I'm pretty sure they still have them. Check your local Dollar Tree. I also like to use the craft mats that you can get in their kitchen section at Dollar Tree as well. They're great. You're going to need something to protect your surface. So here you can see I've got a new glove. I'm squeezing out the excess liquid, and I'm going to drape the doily over our wire basket. I really like the way that looked. I like the combination of the shiny brass with the muted crocheted doily. This is also going to help to stabilize it that much better, so then you can put something heavier in here, like say you want to store some fruit or something in this basket. This will just help prevent the doily from collapsing on itself. I put it over a jar and the craft mat. That helped to allow it to dry well. And you can see that there's a fringe that's coming up. That's why I had to dry it upside down over the jar. All right, so it's not fully dry yet at this point, so I decided to go in to add just a few stitches and around the brass and the doily, just to help to secure that doily onto the wire mesh basket. I didn't want it to accidentally pop off later on once I start using it. So I just went around it a few different spots and tied it on to secure it. And that's how it looks like there. I actually am really happy with how this project turned out. It was better than I expected. Let me know what you think. I've got quite the selection of some colorful doilies, but honestly, I have found that they're actually not that easy to find in the thrift store. So admittedly, I've been kind of holding on to them and hoarding them. And if you're like me, where it's hard to let them go, well, then this project is a quick and simple and easy one to do, and you're not even going to be using any glue on it. I'm going to be using this vintage silver sugar bowl here, and you can see the tag still on it, so I just needed to remove that and clean it up. But feel free to use any kind of container you'd like. You're just going to have to play around and experiment to see what looks best. So here's my selection of some really pretty colorful doilies, and all I'm going to do is fold them in half. I did have to remove some of the price tags here, but you're going to just fold them in half. And then all I'm going to do is just an accordion fold along the rounded edge of our doily, and it kind of creates a bit of a ruffle. I'm going to tuck that inside our little silver piece here, and I'm going to be doing that same fold for all of these doilies. Now, if you would like, you could definitely stitch it or tie it off on the bottom to help hold the cluster together. I put enough into my dish that I felt I didn't need to do that, but you can see how pretty it looks. It kind of looks a bit like flowers in a way. You can definitely make some flowers out of these doilies as well. I haven't tried that yet. I'm actually curious to see how that will work, but all I did was just continue to fold these up, tuck them inside my container, and I have to say this looks so pretty. I love the combination of the doilies with the silver container, and I actually think this is perfect for springtime. Now, I know it doesn't always sit well with people to take doilies apart, but sometimes they just get badly stained, and no matter what, you cannot get the stains out. Well, I think those are perfect for crafts where you do need to take a doily apart and you want to use it for some different projects. So I have this doily here. It's got a really bad stain on it. I could not get it out, so I thought it was perfect for crafting. I was recently inspired by a project I had seen on Pinterest, and I couldn't wait to try it out using a doily. As you can see, I have a mini embroidery hoop, and the center of this particular doily happens to be the size of that mini hoop. But you can see I'm going to be cutting out that center. I am going further out away from the main center to cut it out. That allows me a bit of work room as needed to fit it onto this hoop. I am also going to be using some sheer cotton fabric here. It's just an off-white color. It actually goes well with the doily. I'm just going to layer the two pieces on top of each other, and then I'm going to be placing the outer hoop over top. You can see that before I had taken the hoop apart, laid the pieces on top of the inner hoop, and now placing the outer hoop over those two layers. It is going to be a little snug, but that's okay. We want it to be snug so it doesn't fall apart. I'm just tightening things up, and then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to be trimming off any excess fabric, and just about, I'd say about 1 centimeter from the edge of the hoop. It's all going to depend on the size of hoop, because you could definitely do this project at a larger scale, but I'm going to be using this one for a really unique project. I'm going to be adding it to something that's really cool. I haven't seen it done like this before, except in this other project. Like I said, I was inspired by another one, but I've got this little twist with the doily. All right, so now all I need to do is glue the fabric onto the hoop, and I'm also going to go back in and I'm going to glue the edges of the doily on as well. And I'm going to be going all the way around. You just want to make sure it's glued down so it doesn't come apart if by chance you didn't get things tight enough, which does happen. And also if it ends up getting like knocked about or something, then this will be all nice and secure. All right, so all my edges are glued down. I'm just going to trim off any of the excess that's kind of hanging too far into the hoop. That's just because I just didn't trim off enough, but the rest should be fine. It's not going to show through the front of it. And here's how it's looking. It's looking very cute. You could actually just leave it as is if you like, but I'm actually going to be turning mine into a nightlight. So I had this in my stash, this nightlight, and all I'm going to do is just figure out the touch points between the hoop and the nightlight, and I'm adding some hot glue, and then I'm going to press that hoop into the glue, and I'm going to allow that to set. I am going to be going back in to add a bit more glue here just to help stabilize it. And then I thought, you know, sometimes these nightlights can get a little warm. So I thought I'm going to just add just a little bit of wire to help to secure it onto this nightlight. You may not have to do that, but I just wanted to make sure that this was not going to fall off, especially if somebody accidentally hits it or something as they're walking by, because this is kind of in a hallway where I keep this. So all I'm going to do now is just wrap that thin wire. It is really thin. It's actually, I think, a brass wire, but you can see it's so thin. I don't even know what the gauge of this wire is, but I wrapped it around, and I'm using some needle nose pliers just to twist it. And then I'm going to be cutting off the excess, but this worked really, really well. I was able to get it quite tight. I didn't even feel any movement from this piece once I got that all secured. So you can see how that's looking. I think it's so, so cute. I love that little nightlight look. And then I'm going to be just adding the light into this, and then all you have to do is plug it in, and it's so, so pretty. I love it. I'm really excited to share this project because it turned out so well. So I've got a basic clipboard. I just picked it up from my local dollar store, and I'm going to give it a coat of some paint, but my craft paint, I'm going to be mixing it with some white gesso. So gesso is a primer. I've got a full video all about gesso here on my channel. I'll have that linked in the description box. But I like to mix my craft paint with gesso because first of all, I wanted a lighter color, so it did provide me with a lighter shade of this turquoise. And it also helps the paint to go further because I don't have to add as much. You know, craft paint can be quite transparent, so this really helps. I had a lot of gesso that I need to get through before it goes bad, so I thought this is a really good way to help me get through it. So I'm using a soft bristle brush, and I'm going to go ahead and paint the entire background of my clipboard. You can see I'm being careful to paint around the clip. Now, if you'd like, you can definitely do a finish on the clip as well. I'm not going to bother doing that in this video. I was okay with it as is, but I'm sure you could probably like use rub and buff, or you could even like use an alcohol ink on here. I would experiment to see what would work best on that if you decide to change that up. All right, so I'm going to do is give this 2 coats of paint, and I am going to allow it to dry well in between each coat. Okay, so the clipboard is all nice and dry. I happen to have a rectangular doily that was the exact size of this clipboard. So the clipboards come in different sizes. You can get longer ones, wider ones, you can get smaller ones. I would just check out your local store, see what there is, and see if you can find a doily that's going to match the size of your clipboard. So you can see I'm tucking it up underneath the clip because I am going to have to cut away a portion of the doily to get it to fit on the surface. And you can see I've turned it upside down so I can figure out where I actually need to cut the excess. This does take a little bit of fiddling around to see how much you need to cut off. I will end up having to go back in a little bit later and trim off some more. But for now, this is a start. I am going to just be cutting into this, and I will be having to cut in on a bit of an angle as well. So once you've got kind of the excess figured out, like the portion that you need to cut off, I'm going to just start to remove it. I am going to be keeping those little pieces just in case I need to use it to fill in anywhere once I'm done. But for the most part, I have to say I got it pretty good. I will have to fix it up a bit more. I'm using this premium craft glue. It's similar to fabric tack that you can get at your local craft store or even Walmart. I'm also going to be using my hot glue gun. So I am going to be using hot glue at the bottom to start. That will give me that instant hold that I need to help hold this into place. I'm just adding a little line of the glue, pressing the edge of the doily into it. You can see how I've got my doily all lined up around the edge of my clipboard here. And I'm just going to press that into the glue. I'm going to peel back the doily now. And where the doily is crocheted quite thick, that's where I'm going to add this glue that I have that's similar to fabric tack. I've had this in my stash for a while. I'm trying to use it up. I got it from my local Dollar Tree. I don't know if it's available at all Dollar Trees, but I just added little dollops into the thick parts of the doily, just a few places. And I'm going to press that down. This is just going to allow you to have a little bit of wiggle room if you need to pull anything into place. It does dry quickly, but not as fast as a hot glue gun. So here I am now adding some more. It's best if you work in sections. You do not want to apply glue all over this unless you decide that you do want to try something like a tacky glue or whatnot. But I find that doing it this way, you're actually not going to see the glue coming through any of those holes, which is definitely something I wanted to avoid. So just experiment a little, see what was going to work best for you. But you'll see I'm just going to go ahead and just continue to work my way up the clipboard towards the top and just working in sections, using the wet glue first before I go in and add the hot glue. And now this is where I discovered, because I kind of pushed everything up, I had too much bulk under the clip. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to trim that down. That was just going to allow me to get it tucked under there properly so I can glue that edge down as well. So now that I've got that completed, I decided I'm going to use the wet glue again because I just got a little bit more work time than the hot glue. This allows me to get that bead of glue in there and press the doily in it before the glue sets up. If I did this with the hot glue gun, I would not have enough time to push that doily into that glue to make sure that it's going to stick. So I've got that all pressed into place now, and then I'm going to go ahead and start to glue down the top. This top portion, I did decide to just use my hot glue gun because I actually did want a quick hold this time. I didn't want things to move out of place on me, and so I found that if I used my hot glue gun, I was able to get that contact between the clipboard and the doily to happen really, really fast. So you can see I'm just kind of working around, kind of pulling the doily here and there just to get it to cover the entire clipboard. If you can't get your hands on a doily like this that'll fit your clipboard, you can just use fabric to cover it. You could even use a paper doily, or you could use scrapbook paper. I would just experiment and see what would work for you. All right, so I've had that little scalloped edge. I'm going to glue that to the back where the clip is, the top of the clip is. I wasn't going to bother, but then I thought, you know what, that'll kind of finish it off nicely and look like the completed doily has completely covered this clipboard. You can see once I flip this around, but I did have to make sure those edges were glued so they don't fray and fall apart. I went and glued the tips of each doily edge there to the one that's already on the clipboard. Helps hold it all into place, but you can see how that's looking. I love this so much. It's awesome. So for a fun little added touch, I had dried some peonies. You know me, I love to add a touch of nature to my projects. And I thought, how fun would it be to add this cluster of dried peonies to the front of this clipboard? So I'm just going to trim them down, and then I'm going to be using an elastic band again, but of course I needed to figure out my placement first to make sure that they were going to showcase nicely. If you don't have some dried peonies like this, you could definitely use faux florals, or say maybe you've got a bunch of herbs that you've got hanging. You could add that, or you could add a picture. You can just use whatever you'd like. But I thought this was just so fun and so pretty. It definitely has a very feminine look to it. I think it's just, oh, I seriously can't get over how amazing this is looking. Okay, so I've got that all into place, wrapping my elastic in, and I thought, you know, it's still lacking a little bit of something, so I decided to use some jute twine. You could use some ribbon if you'd like, but working in a flower shop, we used jute twine, and we would wrap it around dry florals, and then we could hang it or, you know, present it to somebody. It was just a nice little added touch that we liked in the shops. So I'm just going to do wrapped it around a few times, tied off a basic little bow, and I still had a little scrap here. I wanted to add just one more extra set of tails. That's just something I like. But yeah, I love how that is. Just going to put it into place, and then you could hang this on the wall. You can lean it on a shelf. Let me know what you think of this project. I have a playlist that's full of some different ideas on how you can use some vintage doilies in your crafts, and it's linked right here. I want to thank you all so very much for joining me today, and we will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.